Good morning, everyone. A beautiful morning it is too, but we'll get to that in a second. I hope everyone had a nice weekend. I have to say I had a better weekend than what I had tail end of last week, as the humidity dropped and things were less sticky. The air got a wee bit less chewy, if you understand what I mean. When it's so humidity is so high, the air's very wet and very thick, and that's what leads to all the stickiness. But I have to say, over the weekend that seemed to improve. Still hot, still bloody horrible, but more bearable. Right, anyway, let's have a quick look and see who's in before we get this underway this morning. Less publications here in Scotland this morning in the paper review for some reason, but when I looked at the comparatives in England, actually they just dropped them because the subjects had been covered so many times. And one story only related to England and one of the headlines, so I can understand why the paper review here in Scotland is a wee bit less, but like the Guardian, it's got the same headline as the Times and the Daily Mail and the Telegraph. And the mirror down that road, we don't normally get that up here, but it was on train ticket cost rising by 5.5% down that road, and the outrage it goes where. And the scum, we don't have the scum in the paper review today. It's on another entertainment story, and I think whoever was editing the paper review for the press for the TV channels this morning just decided there's enough of this rubbish. Okay, right, let's look, see who's in. Aki's mad. Hey, the other Davies in, John O'Rourke's in. Looks like Martin Hibby's in. Desiree's in. Jim Soralba's in. Jeanette Gilfillan's in. Gilfillan's in. June's in. Gordon Hunter's. Good morning, Gordon. Morning, Alistair. Morning, Stephen. Morning, Lorna. Good morning, Dragon. That's another unusual thing today, folks. Madam Director is not working today. So right after this programme, I'm going to cook her a big breakfast. Because I'm a nice guy. Who else will go? Wolf Pet. Rosie McGregor. Sir Larry the Cat. I'll be living the wheel at your video soon, Larry. Good morning, Reagan Await. Folks, Reagan Await goes live right after this broadcast, and he'll give you the news from a different perspective, a more Anglo perspective than what I will give you the news from. Obviously, he's covering different sorts of headlines as well. He's covering the press down that road. Okay, Alex Adams in. Hi, Alex. Melanie's in. Margaret's in. Art Office is in. Jodie's in. Doug's in. Kilt King's in. Good morning, Kilt King. And Class Action's in. Good morning, Class Action. Okay, folks, we're up with the 100 mark, so let's get this broadcast underway. It's Indy O with Charlie Cat's in and all. My every now and again co-host for the morning show is in his spot. Alright, anyway, Indy Truck Davey out the truck now at home in his office in Salford, North Lanarkshire, where it is a beautiful morning, 18 degrees, sunny, humidity is it's telling us it's high, but the air's telling me it's not as high as that, at 80%. The pollen count is moderate, main allergen is grass. Now that's what the weather's like here in Salford, North Lanarkshire. If you want to know what it's like, look at your own bloody windy. Good morning, John, the truck driving legend, still a driving god. Sorry, van driving legend. I believe you need to change that to truck driving legend now, John. Morning, all Indy people. Hope you're all having a good day. You're on a day off again. Well done. But I'm off a day as well, John, so there's a coincidence. I see the rise of the far right and the sad protest in Falkirk and Aberdeen this weekend. I thought the one in Falkirk was hilarious because the hotel they were protesting outside had stopped housing asylum seekers a fair bit earlier in the year or even before. So the notion that these things are, I think they're being staged, to be honest with you, John. I actually believe that GB News and some of the right wingers down that road are organising these small protests here in Scotland. That's my belief. Right. But thanks very much for the kind donation, John. I hope you enjoy your day off. It's a lovely day, so you should probably will enjoy your day off. Right. First up this morning, folks, we've got the Scotsman. We'll put it up and see what it's got for our entertainment this morning, shall we? If we can find the bloody thing. That should be it. Yep, the Scotsman. Here we go. And the Scotsman has SNP ministers face writing off 36 million benefits debt. So what's this all about? Well, it would appear that during the transfer of 200,000 people from the Department of Work and Pensions to Social Security Scotland, they've discovered that there was £36 million worth of overpayments and fraud. That debt has now been transferred to the Scottish Social Security Service, and apparently the Scottish Social Security Service will not follow the Department of Work and Pensions in passing a law to claw back this 36 million quid in overpayments and fraud. And this says, well, they're going to write it off. Well, aye. Now, what they did down that road, well, they're introducing a new law which allowed the Department of Work and Pension to raid people's bank accounts to get back overpayments and fraudulent payments. And if they've no got it, they will then go to court where they will get permission to seize assets or implement punitive punishments. Now, Shirley Ann Somerville here in Scotland, who's heading up Social Security Scotland, said to introduce a similar bill here in Scotland would go against the ethos of Social Security Scotland. There will be mechanisms put in place to get back overpayments and to deal with fraudulent payments in the future. But at this point in time, 36 million quid out of payments of over 12 billion quid made through Social Security Scotland, it's a drop in the ocean. And as the fraud was found, overpayments and fraud were found during the transfer by the Department of Work and Pensions, as they were honing the details out, it happened in their watch. So why is the debt being transferred to Scotland? That's my understanding of it from the article there. I haven't had time to research it. But apparently, Scotland is being urged to introduce punitive punishments and direct intervention in people's private finance in order to draw back money for mistakes. Because that's what they are. Fraudulent claims should never make it through, they should be spotted. Overpayments, well, that happens. It's only fair, your mistake, that you come to a fair agreement with the person who is going to be punished or having to pay back that money for your mistakes. The idea that you would use punitive and direct intervention rather than negotiation, that's a bloody outrage. An outrage. Right, let's take that one down, get ready, and we'll get the Herald up, because that's normally what comes after it. So, Scotsman down, Herald up. What nonsense has the Herald got for us this morning? No doubt another attack on the government. Funny that, as I went through all the English papers this morning, not a single one of them was attacking the Labour government for anything other than the hike in rail prices. Okay, here we go. Soaring demand for refugee homes could cost City 66 million. Well, it isn't a direct attack on the government. That makes a bloody change. This story is the story of how Glasgow is taking more than its fair share of refugees, and it's causing a bit of a housing problem to house all these people. Now, we're quite happy for them to come to Glasgow and surrounding areas. But if the Home Office is asking us to do this, Surely the Home Office should be stumping up the money to ensure that we can give these people a decent standard of living and a decent accommodation to live in. Outrageous. Well, Rachel, I think you got a mention today, by the way. Good morning, Rachel from accounts. So the people of Glasgow have been very, very generous in their hospitality to people coming here seeking asylum. But there comes a limit. That limit was hit a couple of years ago. I believe we covered this story when Glasgow put a pause on taking asylum seekers, unless the Home Office stumped up. Now that might have been under the Conservative government, the last one, but I'm sure the Home Office gave. So what Glasgow needs to do now is tell them we're taking no more until you give us a fair settlement to make these people get all the services that they need. Medical services, education services, trauma services, housing, everything that they need. The Home Office should be fronting that cost, no the councils. Simple as that. So Rachel, take your checkbook out. Glasgow needs money to look after a lot of people who have been traumatised on their way here or before they set out on their journey to arrive here to seek asylum. And that's the correct term, by the way, to seek asylum. No illegals, no refugees, to seek asylum. I told you it was a 5 on the post. I sent it to Treasury, Rachel. Right, next up we've got the Daily Fail, I believe. Yep. The Daily Fail. D-Day at the White House. Starmer, Zelensky and EU leaders to meet Trump today. But will he listen to a single word they say? That one made me smile. Why? Because not Donny won't be listening to a word they say. Don will be off in his usual flights of fancy. Because Donny's not cognitively able to understand the situations as it is. Donny will listen and nod, and then the diplomats will translate into crane pictures for him in the hope that he'll grasp the situation. But no, Donny will not listen to a word they say. Donny and Putin have already hatched their plans for carving up the Ukraine, whether that be territorially or any other way. So, I don't think Donny will understand anything actually. It's the lackeys that are pulling his strings. So let's take that down. That features quite a lot today, by the way. Next up, we've the rancid, and as you know, we don't put the rancid up, folks. So what's the rancid go for us today? Leaders join Zelensky for Trump showdown. There's that word again, showdown. Surely they're going for constructive talks to try and find a peaceful resolution to the situation that they find themselves in between Russia and Ukraine. But no, apparently it's a showdown. The terminology doesn't bode well there, does it? When you think about it. It's portraying Trump as being on Putin's side when the European leaders and the leader of the territory that's under attack are going for a showdown with Trump. Interesting terminology. Right, next up we have the Times. Let's see what it's got for us this morning. The Times tells us that Zelensky wants security guarantees before a deal. They're no learning, are they? Europe is going to have to learn to defend itself. At this point in time, America is not a reliable ally. That's the simple facts. The couple of bylines here really made me smile. Now, David and I talk about these papers being printed out with Scotland and no being in tune with Scotland. Well, if we look at just under what it says, The Times, Scotland, we have the game is back, Man United undone by error. Well, it shows you how out of touch these people are. Our game was back a week ago, and Man United isn't playing our league. Why is that a headline in the Times, Scotland? But the other byline's interesting as well, and that is trans rowing set to be key issue for SNP at election. No, it's no. There's a very good reason why it's no. Because so far the SNP have ignored the Supreme Court ruling, and they'll ignore it in the running election as well. Because ignoring the Supreme Court ruling was the right thing to do. Trying to give everybody equal rights is the right thing to do. It's a bit like that stupid headline at the tail end of last week. You know, where they were talking about Edinburgh Council Education Board not being happy with the advice being given on this issue, and then you get into the article and it says the Scottish Government has issued no guidance. It's a good reason why the Scottish Government have issued no guidance, because they're no fucking playing. Simple as that. And that's the way it should be. When a majority of MSPs pass a bill in that place along that road in Edinburgh, it should stand. End of bloody story. And it would appear that's the approach that John's decided to take. I prefer to roll in the fuck off. Works for me, guys. I don't know about yous. Works for me. They decided that we wanted to be we wanted to give everybody in our land equal rights. So if they want to issue guidance, go ahead. Don't expect us to fucking listen. Hello in Gran Canaria. Right, let's move on. After the Times, we have the red and blue Telegraph, I believe. Is that? Oh, that's shut the wrong one down there. It would appear I might have shut the Telegraph down there. I'll have to go and grab it, folks. But that'll only take me a few seconds. Yeah. I nearly gave you the English version over there. Although I have to say, they're both the same this morning. I should have just grabbed the English version. I was cross-referencing the headlines in the English paper reviews this morning because there seems to be more titles involved. Right, let's get the Telegraph up. Europe tells Trump, don't give in to Putin. As if he's listening. And a sturgeon cashing in on cruel salmon smear, says his family. That's what happens when you put your head above a parapet. Somebody's going to shoot you. And it would appear that Nicola's book's not going down well with Alex Salmon's family. Just the way it is. But Europe tells Trump, don't give in to Putin. I'm sorry, too late for that. Trump's a Putin fanboy. There goes the Telegraph again. Next up we have the Looney Raggy Express. What's that go for us this morning? Revealed shameful SNP waste and delays in dueling the A9. Well, folks, as we know, the A9's been a stop-start project since it got underway. I think Alec was in the second term when the promise to duel the A9 was made. And then we got the Tories in 2011, and that slammed the brakes on a lot of funding. And then we got it gone again got a certain section done, and the funding dried up again. And then we had problems getting contractors to take on the challenge because it's difficult terrain and it was a tight budget. And now that they've found a contractor to do it, which has taken a long time, in the meantime we've had Brexit with the pandemic and more rounds of funding cuts. So, and Brexit had an effect as well on the capabilities of the contractors to carry out the contracts because all the European workers fucked off. And then, of course, the price of construction materials shot through the roof. And then we had Liz Truss come along and fuck about with the economy, causing galloping inflation, pushing the price up again. So it's been a very difficult task through very tough times. But they'll get there. Late, but on budget probably, even though the budget's had to swell. Just the way it goes. So it is. But yeah, waste and delays in June. The truth behind it is there wasn't waste and delays. There was funding cuts, there was changes of circumstances, changes of government down that road. And it all affects what happens here. We're on a fixed budget. And they control the size here. Next up, we have the Metro. Now this story was run last week and all. And it's time to put some more truth behind this. Alright. Poor pupils betrayed by SNP, says Lib Dems. Education pledges lie in ruins. And when you read it, the Metro, it tells us that the attainment gap has only narrowed slightly. So, we're back on the attainment gap thing, folks. Now, the education pledge doesn't lie in ruins. We carried out all the other things, as I said. Free school uniforms for those who need it. Free school meals. Breakfast clubs. We had breakfast clubs before anywhere else in New Zealand had breakfast clubs. Direct cash for headmasters to help the poorest teachers. And the attainment fund. And believe it or not, folks, the attainment gap is and has consistently been going in the right directions since 2011. The pace at which it was going in the right direction has varied since 2011. The pandemic slapped the brakes on a fair bit, but it was still going in the right direction. So, but, I thought, let's have an actual look at some of the information that's out there on this in England and in Scotland, right? So we went to England first, and believe it or not, their educational attainment gap, and I'll put it up in a second, their educational attainment gap was going in the right direction from 2011 to 2018, and then for some reason, started going backwards. So we'll share that. Now, AI got its information from mere grown-up publications like the Education Policy Institute, the Sutton Trust, the government itself up here. So the information here is coming from all these different sources of information. What it says is the educational attainment gap in England has widened, particularly for disadvantaged children and those with special needs, education and disabilities. This widening has reversed a previous trend of narrowing the gap, with progress made between 2011 and 2018 being significantly impacted by the pandemic, and then it gives you more information. Right, so the gap is widening again in England. So we thought, okay, how's the gap? What's the score here in Scotland? And well, I'll put it up because it is interesting. By the way, although I was reading the AI section, all the publications that AI is obtaining this information is actually listed here. Okay. Now let's take that and look at the situation in Scotland over the same time period, shall we? What I asked was the exact same question. Has the educational attainment gap widened or narrowed in Scotland? And here is the answer that came up, and there's publications there to show it. Down here, there's all the government surveys and even the BBC, and then we get further down and we get the press claiming that the opposite has happened to what the actual surveys and studies are telling us has happened. Anyways, there's the results for has the education attainment gap widened or narrowed in Scotland. The attainment gap at school leaving age between pupils from the most and least deprived areas has narrowed overall since 2010, 2011. And then you can get more, it tells you more information, you get the educational fact sheet and things like that. And what it does tell us is that basically it's related to poverty, the attainment gap. And as we know, poverty is in retreat here in Scotland because of SNP initiatives, such as feeding kids at school, saving parents money, providing grants for uniforms, making sure everybody goes to school uniformly dressed, and you can't pick on a kid just by the way they're dressed. Taking the stigma out of being a wee bit poorer, but more importantly, all the different measures like the baby box and all these different things combined means that child poverty in Scotland's in reverse, whereas in England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, the situation's stable actually, but in England and Wales, it's getting worse. But it's getting harder to combat. The worst excesses of Rachel for accounts and her mob down that road. As they cut our block grant, it gets harder and harder to mitigate things like the bedroom tax. It's harder to do. The two-child cap. It gets harder to mitigate. Because for those of you in England, we don't have a bedroom tax here. There's no two-child cap on benefits here. Political choices are different here. But I say this is nonsense. The SNP have failed. They haven't failed. It hasn't went along as quickly as they wanted it to, since Nicola took this on as being something they want to achieve and push. It was going great guns until the pandemic slammed the brakes on. But even during the pandemic, it was still going in the right direction, just much more slowly. And yet here we have an English rag telling the people of Scotland that the government's actually failed, when the facts are there to be seen. The government hasn't failed children. The education system hasn't failed children, poorer children. In fact, the amount of young people leaving education at the age they were talking about there, going on to higher education, tells us that the attainment gap has narrowed. Because record number of people from poorer backgrounds are going to university in Scotland because they don't face tuition fees. But that's all part of the tuition fees and things like that were all put in place for Tony Blair as part of dumbing down the UK population. Right, so the Metro's talking fish and peddling crap. But we're used to that. An attack on the SNP government for something that they're telling us has happened when the facts and statistics tell us otherwise. But we're used to that here in Scotland. Next up with the National. What's the National vote for as a date? Shut down the two. The National. If I can find the bloody thing. I have got it. Here it's here. The National has Reform UK councillor shares stage with neo-Nazi at hotel protest. To say I found that funny. Protesting a hotel that no longer holds asylum seekers in Falkirk. Mental. The minister's not told US troops on Scottish soil. What's this all about? Well, because we have such a small defence force, can't call it a military anymore. The US are sending in planes to Lossiemouth to patrol our skies. As well as those planes coming, there's a contingent of US soldiers coming to protect the planes and the people and their military, their air force, which is interesting because here in the UK, the air force has a land crew which would defend them on the ground. But apparently, once again, ministers no told. Just, we'll stick them in Scotland. Aye, just stick the planes in Scotland. It's the north we need protecting because we don't have any Nimrods or anything like that anymore to protect marine skies above the North Sea and up the Northwest Passage. Ooh, matron. They're right up that Northwest Passage. So down it comes. So the Americans are here because we're not capable. The Americans here because the UK military has been butchered. I'm away up the A9 tomorrow. When the next two sections are finished from Moy to Culloden and Ballingley to Dunkeld, it's going to be worth it. It will be. We're on stage 3 of the new John, as you know. And we've only just managed to get a construction team willing to take it on. And there's some difficult terrain got to be navigated there. In fact, there's even a protected wetland where they're going to have to float the road. So it is going to be an engineering feat and a half. And it will take time. And it's going to cost a lot of money. So there you go. And the MOD's urged to come queen. Well, they're not going to come queen. I hope I haven't missed anybody else's super chats. I do apologise. Oh, there's one there for Graham. Hey, morning all from sunny Perth. Sorry you're late. Catch up for you today. I'll excuse you the naughty step this time, Graham, but don't do it again. Right, done with the national. But Reform Councillor. I tell you, share stage with neo-Nazi. Excuse me, folks. Anybody surprised with that? After all, you don't get much further to the right than Reform. I guess the next stage would be up the ladder, would be a neo-Nazi. Interesting. So I say, I don't have that many publications for you this morning. This programme seems to run on a bit. Book shut, you know what that means. Or just left the Star. And quite interestingly, the Star's has managed to get entertainment and politics battered onto its front page this morning. So we'll put it up. And the Star has for us this morning. She's done it again. Told you were going to get a mention, Rachel's from accounts. And it's off. Horse racing to strike over Chancellor's hated bet tax. Now, as Rachel scrambles around looking for funds to plug her not so insignificant great black hole, it would appear she intends to hit the gaming and gambling sector. I personally don't have any objections to that. But apparently the gaming and gambling sector do. So they've decided to take action and hit Rachel for accounts where it hurts in the Treasury. So they have cancelled all race meets for next month, meaning there will be no revenue from the Treasury from the gaming and gambling sector as far as horse racing is concerned. Now, you imagine the bookies went striking off because there's nothing to bet on. That massive great black hole that Rachel's already nursing will become even bigger. Oh dear. Chaos and general strike in the future, I may predict. No, it won't. The press is too compliant to allow for that sort of action. How much longer is this Starmer and Rachel for accounts government going to last? I'm not sure. Rachel for account stole your fiver, did she, Ackies? Well, after all, you stole her kettle. Fair's fair. Alright. Anyway, it would appear that the gaping black hole that Rachel's nursing is about to gape a little bit more. That's it for this morning, folks. As you know, we'll be back this afternoon where David and I will try and cover a variety of subjects, but I think I'll just relax and go about it and see where it goes. We will still write it, but we'll see where it goes. But I'm definitely feeling much more relaxed now that the humidity is naes. And the air's no sticky and chewy, you know what I mean? Right. Thanks for tuning in this morning, as usual, in big, loud and large numbers. Thanks to everybody for their kind donations. Sorry. And if I've missed anybody, I apologise. Comments move fast. So, see you this afternoon, folks. And I am now off to have a look at Sir Larry the Cat's channel. Oh, well, not quite. I'm going to watch Reagan Elite first, and then I'll be going to Sir Larry the Cat's channel, because Reagan's gone live. Catch you later, folks. Bye for now.